Taking a look today at our neighbor's high tunnel, this 14 by 50 foot space I've documented extensively over the years. This is from the topsoil that was dug out from the pond that we dug back in 2021, and getting things renovated for the spring. I want to go through. I've got a little bulb crate here for weeds and greenery that can be sent to the chickens. Start thinking about tidying up winter damaged greens. Like here's this parsley with some beautiful tufts of green tucked in that we might be able to enjoy in the weeks to come, but maybe it's nice to clean up some of that older material. So basically, basic tidying up, getting ready for the season. I need to get the tank on the far end back up and running. It looks like it's in good shape, it's held water, but I want to be able to get the hoses in here so we can distribute and start hydrating the soil. Even though it's been winter, a mild winter, but still winter, the ground outside is somewhat frozen, it's covered in snow, very thoroughly hydrated, but in here the soil has gotten baked. It has seen none of that snow. Still some good moisture down in, but I think getting stuff hydrated, organized, some weeds cleaned up, just getting a feel for this space is the work of the day. We've got just a little shy of 300 gallons of water that we can use that have been the temperature's slowly been easing into whatever the temperature of this space is. And right now, I could be in a t-shirt in here. It's quite warm. It's definitely below freezing outside. But I want to start rigging up the hose so we can send water through here. It's a slow flow coming out of this tank, but it should be good enough. Maybe I'll move the solar panel outside and get our hose lined up so we can use it. Panel's out of the way so I can hook up the hose and figure that out. I definitely have a lot of backlog stuff to do out here. There's this tank that we set up last summer as an experiment for aerated compost tea. At some point when things start to thaw out, right now there's no rush because the pond is still frozen on the surface, but once that thaws out, where can we set up a solar powered compost tea aerator in this area? Soaking and dunking tanks, where does a solar panel go? That's the fun of a system like this. There's all these little bits that we have to figure out what the heck to do with them. I think in the future I'll start thinking about organizing this bulk material underneath our new solar array over there just so it stays tidy. But right now it's an eyesore and hopefully reminding me to do this work sooner than later. Just hooked up this nice rubber hose. It's a little long for this space, but it's what is in here. And rubber is nice because it has less gunk coming through it and a lot more flexible, especially when it's cold. That's the thing with a system like this, it's not under pressure. So yes, I've opened the valve, but it's going to take a little while for the water to run through this 100 feet of hose. Part of why I want to set it up today is so that as I'm working in the space, or anyone is, we can take this low flow hose here. There it goes, it's just starting. So I can purge the line that's actually extremely hot from going through that black hose. We'll purge the line, get it loaded, and then figure out, as we're working in here, we can be opening it up and letting it really deeply soak. So like I'll be weeding around the fig, I can soak and hydrate the fig, can hydrate these little lettuce starts and move it through, rather than turning on a sprinkler system. Oh, it gets everything. It's like I'll have to put it where I'm working, keep an eye on it, and then move it around. The excess of the hose is wrapped in a loop back by the tank, so it's out of the way. And right now I'm just starting by flood irrigating this walkway along the southern end here. There's a massive number of seedling parsley that has come up all through here, these little green babies, hundreds and hundreds of them. So I thought it'd be nice to get a good deep soak in that walkway, make sure their needs are met. There's some infrastructural work that needs to happen. There's a 6-inch perforated pipe I got used from a friend that what I need to do is probably lay this out. It's probably for another day, but lay this out on this side, the southern side of the main walkway, pin it down with stones and logs and run it from the top of this low tunnel down to the ground, over, and then down and over and to that water tank, so that we can put a fan there with a little solar panel running the fan, and this low tunnel cover, this poly, over this space. This will all make sense later on. And I've talked about this in previous videos, I'll link to that here, where the low tunnel needs, it absolutely will require active ventilation that takes the hot air from that space and forces it down through this walkway, which will bury in debris. That's a whole project though. That might not be today. The space under this low tunnel where we can put the poly, that's probably the highest priority right now, is to clean up and organize and hydrate so we can put in some compost and seed starting mix and actually start seeds really soon. So the work I need to do here, I just started going through some old mustards and edges of parsley, we'll accumulate that and bring it out. The hens won't get a massive amount out of this, but it's something nice for the end of February. And what I can be doing is letting this water be flooding in here. So it's deeply hydrating this soil, but then also as I'm pulling old brassica leaves, I can't really do this one-handed, but you get the idea. I can be stirring, moving the soil ever so slightly, so as this water is coming in, it's equalizing across the bed. So we get the bed ever more level, so we can more easily flood irrigate this space. So I'm going to go through, clean break a bunch of the leaves off this kale, pull out some of the lettuces that just didn't make it over winter, and get it deeply flood irrigated. That's just a little bit cleaner. So there's nooks and crannies here. We can put in some seed starting mix, maybe McEnroe organic or some sort of finished compost. Think about sowing in our onion starts. We've got artichoke seeds we might want to start very, very soon. There's some really early season things we might want to get going in here, but it's better to clear our way out of the old stuff first and know what we actually have working, what we can work with. Like in here, there's so much dead material. Let me clean this out next and get it hydrated. Yes, the benefit of cleaning up a space is you get to see how much space you actually have to work with. So underneath where this polytunnel will be, there actually is a fair amount of seed starting room, and some of it nice contiguous room like this block right in front of me. So we should be able to get started with seeds pretty soon, and it's adding up. There's a nice little bonus for the chickens here for sure. The water's coming through at a nice gentle clip, enough to really deeply hydrate. We can always surface water later. And I realize I have to kind of keep a little eye. You can see the amount of water has gone down by about a 1/6 or 1/7. Definitely not enough to soak everything. So we use a fair bit and then think about the solar panel and the pump in the pond and refilling that. But that's another project. So maybe today what it is focusing on, the first couple of rings worth of this space being done really thoroughly. Finishing up perhaps down to my sweatshirt there. Get all these old lettuces out, really focus and hydrate on the nice ones that are there, and start thinking about what we can do here. I also need to go through, there's perennial kale on the outside of this that I think what I'll do before I leave is cut back really hard so that it fits under the poly. I'm also walking through it all the time, and get that a bit organized, maybe start trying to propagate some of those. I'm going to go through here, I think, with this perennial kale, and rather than cutting them back and harvesting all those greens, trying to propagate them as cuttings, it's a weird time of year to do it. It's extremely hot and dry in here right now. It's also pretty darn cold and inhospitable outside. Maybe instead what I'll try to do is cut off material that feels dead or not ideal, like some of this funkier stuff on the top here, clean that up, head them back, and then do an experiment with actually taking these stems and laying them out along the soil, pinning them down, and then when we bring in compost, stool layering all this, like getting them folded in so they're within the framework of the poly cover, but getting them out of the walkway, but trying to propagate them more through stooling. So I'm just going to do that and take a look. And they all kind of fit within there. The rest is flexible. I had to break a few stems, a little bit like hedge laying style. They're kind of cracked. We'll see. There's definitely material still attached. So what happens? Do these just turn around and start growing upward? Will they root if we bury them in soil? I suspect that's a yes. And then I had to take some cuttings, so I'll take these, reduce most of the leaves on them and just stick them somewhere nice and moist. And that'll be that for this little management of this area. The rest is hydrating all of this, getting the soil a little bit more level, and doing a last pass of cleaning up leaves, but most of them are in a good way. In the next few days, we will come through and side dress all of these beautiful little plants with compost and start thinking through what our seed starting regime will look like. Maybe we need to thin a little more, but I think that's the scope of what I'm going to try to do in here today. The ground is covered in ice and snow out there. It was 12 degrees Fahrenheit last night, but in this space with the doors closed, it's hot enough that I basically am in a sauna. I'm doing some work while getting the therapy of a sauna. Then go outside and work in the snow for a little bit, and then come back in here. It is potent to be able to do that this time of year. The sun energy is really strong, and when you have absolutely no breeze to take the heat away, it accumulates on the skin. And so the vitamin D is starting to come in. Part of the real benefit of work like this time of year. I really appreciate it. First pass at spring renovation in the high tunnel. Doesn't look that different, but things are in a better way. We've got a sense of the hose and access and delivery of water from that tote. Probably next time I'm out, when the ice on the pond recedes, we'll set up the solar panel, we'll set up the pump so we can refill that. But as of right now, the rainwater tanks up at our neighbor's barn will refill that if it does rain. This has been cleared out a little. We've got one crate of nice material to send to the hens. The soil in between the existing plants is a little bit better hydrated. Not dramatically, but a little bit. We can now go through and really dress this out with compost and seed starting mix. Got everything headed and folded in. So the next pass will be the solar panel, the air pump, the 4-inch ducting fan that runs direct from solar, going down into this perforated pipe and the walkway, and delivery of compost. I think that will be the next part, or the next 2 parts. That'll be coming as time allows. Thanks for watching.